The Future of Real Estate was the title of an event held June 7th at the C.V. Rich Mansion in White Plains, presented by Westfair Communications, publisher of the business journals WAG Magazine, the website westfaironline.com, News at Noon, and other electronic newsletters. Appearing on the panel were Gary Kerr, Managing Director for Development in the Northeast for Greystar, Amy Rose, President and CEO of Rose Associates, Leonard Steinberg, Chief Evangelist and Corporate Broker for Compass, and Andrew Wise, Executive Vice President of RPW Group. Sarah Jones-Maturo, President of RM Freeland, served as moderator.
We have had a 50 to 60-year history in Westchester, building rental housing in Hartsdale and in Mount Kisco and owning retail. So we have loved Westchester, and in 2016 we took a hard look and decided time to come back here and really begin an expansion. And obviously our thought, since we started so before the pandemic, is New York City in itself is constrained with the amount of rental housing that we produce, and clearly I'm not getting into the political conversations. That's a whole other topic. It's going to be very limited future supply of housing, rental housing in New York. I think our concept, transit-oriented development jobs, you can walk from the train, you can have an urban, sophisticated lifestyle there. Our amenity package is incredibly rich. And we're very aware of the younger demographic that either was living in these communities. In Yonkers, they seem to go from new development to new development, and certainly in White Plains, these are two earner incomes that are either commuting or living in Westchester and want an urban experience. What is happening in downtown White Plains is fabulous, and I agree for people to think of sort of that suburban as like a second-class lifestyle is inaccurate.
Suburban lifestyle is not a second-class lifestyle at all. And in fact, I think with this new ability to be able to live and work in multiple parts of the world, that allows you not necessarily to be in the city every day of the week, I think has opened up a new audience. But as importantly, I think COVID probably awakened in all of us the need to continue with life. And part of life is kids in schools. And the suburbs have been notoriously very, very famous for their extraordinary schools. The demand side of housing and multifamily housing in the suburbs, I think, is just going to keep growing.
But you got to look at the supply that there has been, the supply that will come. And to be candid, if we were to try and build, we're under construction 6 months now. If we tried to start construction today where the cost of debt is and where the cost of construction is, we probably wouldn't be going forward right now. Mm-hmm. We'd have to take a pause. Mm-hmm. The inflationary pressures and the changes in debt have meant all of this supply wave is not coming. Mm-hmm. People who are in the ground today, they will deliver, but I would be shocked if everything that's planned actually delivers. So.
My family has owned and invested here in the county for over 30 years. Historically, we've always owned fairly large corporate office sites. The old General Foods building, old IBM headquarters in White Plains. These sites came with a lot of acreage. They were typically overparked. And so when I joined my father in the family business about 5 years ago, we initially spent a lot of time trying to figure out how we could reimagine what had always been these historically sort of 9 to 5 campuses into what the future might be. And so what we quickly realized was the office park in conjunction with a residential site were actually incredibly complementary. So you obviously had a tremendous amount of existing parking. We also run shuttles. In the case of 1133 Westchester Avenue, White Plains, we run a shuttle to the White Plains train station. The office park has a full gym. It has a cafeteria, a hair salon, a daycare center. And so through this discussion, it became very clear that this live, work, play in a more suburban environment, a little bit different than what some of the other folks on this panel are doing, which is obviously needed and I think excellent for the downtowns. This is a little bit more of a suburban environment where you can have an existing large-scale office building and add to it a residential component.
Typically, solar is a very expensive technology to put on your rooftop, et cetera. And I think if government would actually get behind it a little bit more, or the local utilities would get behind it a little bit more, offer developers a little bit more incentive, we'd be happy to do it. It's just a very high cost instrument to put on your buildings. We're actually going to be putting solar on some of our buildings in Stanford, and the return takes roughly 4 to 5 years before you're able to get your money back.
What types of approaches or security measures are you taking in your developments to make, whether emergency preparedness or security measures or safety aspects into your projects?
When you have such horde events like what took place in Texas and other places, tenants that come out to the market start to look again at things like a security guard, a concierge, and so we've always been focused where we can, buildings with enough scale to have that. So I think, these are trying times, and I think that it's a good question.
I have a pet peeve about hallways being dark. So it's not just a perception of what's happening at your front door, it's making sure that there's proper lighting so that you're in a space and you're aware of your surroundings. And clearly, I just do need to say you have to vet all the people that are working and coming through your building. It's the same as well as for your tenants. So, security can be thought of in different ways as well as just physical security.